Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with Jake. Unfortunately, Scott's son has soccer camp, so we are flying solo here today, and we're going to be talking all things World Whiskey Society. They got a lot of brands. We're going to focus in on Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp today, and we'll sip a little bit of the Doc Holliday 7-year bourbon. We have Chris Barton, blender, that's going to be joining us, so sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Chris, thanks for hanging tight with us today. We're doing it a little bit earlier, so you just get one of us. All is good there, but thanks for joining us this evening on the Bourbon Lens.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Yeah, man. So we were chatting a little bit beforehand and just kind of getting in. There's a lot of layers. Honestly, I don't know much about the World Whiskey Society just in general, and I got to know you a little bit, and I think you're kind of the story that a lot of people are looking at is like, hey, I'm into this. How do I get into or break into the whiskey world? So for those who don't know your path or know much about World Whiskey Society, we'll get there in a second. How did you break into bourbon and whiskey, and in particular this job?
I started off as a bartender. So I was at an upscale sushi restaurant in Atlanta, and they had a decent amount of bourbon. I wouldn't say, a crazy amount, but started ordering more and more and end up starting their barrel program. And then once I moved to Tennessee, I worked for a liquor store there that had some, awesome bourbon picks. We'd go to Buffalo Trace every year, pick, E.H. Taylor picks every year. They just released 2 stag picks. They definitely had some good stuff. And so after that, moved back to Georgia and kind of continued on with the barrel picks and end up joining a few groups here and just continued to go to Kentucky every year.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad place. So of all the places you've been to, what's your favorite pick that you've done?
They stopped doing it, but probably Barton, 1792.
Yeah. Oh man. The 1792, we did one of our first picks that we did as Bourbon Lens was there. It was like, I don't know, 10 degrees outside. They put us into the warehouse to oh, here, we'll go thieve the barrels. And I'm like, we can't nose and taste whiskey out here. And they're like, yeah, we'll bring you in. And the funniest thing was they had this big cinnamon candle lit. I'm like, can we blow that out? Cause all of my notes will just be cinnamon. So it was a great pick. The whiskey was killer. The foolproof, you can't beat it from a pick perspective. So definitely can second that experience was very good. So now that you're into the whiskey game, right? You're here at World Whiskey Society. For those people who don't know, they may have heard of brands, right? Doc Holliday in particular. What is World Whiskey Society and what are you all aiming to do as a brand overall?
I think overall we're, striving to get the best barrels. We're trying to push out, premium product to where we're not trying to, undercut the others and have, just another bottle on the shelf. We want to surpass that and have, just a truly premium product.
Nice. And you have a variety of brands and a variety of things that you all work in. So where is the headquarters of World Whiskey Society?
We're about 30 minutes from Athens, Georgia, and about an hour and a half from Atlanta.
Yeah. And how did the ownership get into this?
They started an import company about 25 years ago. So they have a import brands company and then started the whiskey distillery in 2020.
Oh, nice. And so you all are laying down barrels yourself?
We are not at the moment, just sourcing.
Okay. Gotcha. And maybe one day down the road, that could be something you all look at.
Yeah, I think a different business. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta have your arms in a variety of different tentacles, correct?
Definitely.
So, as a blender, right? This is sometimes the word blending, kind of gets a bad rap in America, right? Because people go right to blended scotch or whatever. You have a very interesting job as you source whiskey and barrels from around the country or wherever you're getting them from, and creating a profile. What's your kind of general process that you follow to be able to craft and create different blends for your products?
A lot of times it's just the baseline. We just received 30 barrels of 19-year light whiskey. So those were aged in Stitzel-Weller barrels. So super old, but it was just lacking. So it was stereotypical light whiskey to where, it's missing that oak and depth. And so I think that finish is really going to, bring it out. And so whenever we tried it, we're looking for stuff to where it had that deeper finish, something like a Mizunara, deeper oak. And we end up deciding on a cigar blend. So we're going to do 5 barrels, finish them, and then create a 20-year cigar blend.
Wow. So you just kind of are looking for traditional depth of flavor for the person. It doesn't matter how you kind of get there. You have a variety of things on hand that can change the flavor profile, adapt the flavor profile, I guess would be the thing you're looking for to get the whiskey to do what you want it to do, right? You're not just kind of stuck into, this is Doc Holliday, this is Wyatt Earp, this is whatever. You can kind of play around with it and get to different vintages and different styles based upon the lot of whiskey that you have available.
For the most part, Doc Holliday is all unfinished. So all of our world whiskey releases are finished. And those are our finished. Mm-hmm. Something we've discussed, having a finished Doc Holliday, just nothing yet.
Yeah.
And same with Wyatt Earp, it's all unfinished. And
so I have the Doc Holliday 7-year in front of me. First time I've ever had it. So very, welcoming to always try new brands, new whiskeys, new everything. Right. And for this one in particular, it's a really rich whiskey. And so what's the story behind Doc Holliday? Does it have a story? Is it something cool made up like Paul Bunyan, or is it something that actually ties to bourbon history?
Yeah. I mean, Doc Holliday himself is a, legend itself. He didn't really have too big of a bourbon history. But I found out, whenever I visited Iron Root in, Texas, mm-hmm. Doc Holliday was actually a dentist in that town of Denison. So it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That kind of tails it into the bourbon area.
Yeah. And so take me through how you blended this one, because, for me, what I like about this so far is it hits all the traditional notes. There's one untraditional note on the nose that sticks out to me. So interesting. And I'm interested to see if you kind of blended it that way. And how are you getting the richness and the creaminess? Because that's what I really appreciate about this sip is it is very rich, very easy to sip on from a mouthfeel perspective. So can you walk our listeners through on how you blended this whiskey?
It's just a single barrel. It's just one individual
these are
barrel.
Single barrels.
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
We're dropping just barrel at a time.
Okay. Well, there we go. That makes it super, super simple for you from there's no blending needed.
None of Doc Holliday's, watered down at all. So it's this uncut to where all we do is filter it. It's ready to go.
Yeah. So for this one, the note that stands out to me that I'm getting is coconut. It's mm-hmm. a really interesting flavor to get on bourbon in general. But it's got that kind of undertone of coconut. Like if you were to have it's not like an almond joy or anything, but if you knew coconut was put in, or they maybe cooked it with coconut water, right? Or coconut cream. Those are the types of things that are really interesting from the nose to the palate. And then it's really rich. It's brown sugar, vanilla. It's your traditional bourbon notes on top of that with a really nice, easy finish. What do you get when you sip this whiskey?
Exact same thing. I just got back from Chicago and we're drinking some Doc Holliday 7-year, and the guy and I, whenever we tried it, we got a lot of pineapple, and it was almost like a tropical cream. Definitely get the nutmeg, cinnamon.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely. The more I sip it, the more the baking spices do start to come up. Mm-hmm. And that's nice that it's not punchy in the face. A lot of times, nutmeg, cinnamon, clove, any of that can be off-putting, right? Or if it doesn't have a strong flavor profile like a rye to kind of cut with citrus, this one kind of toes that line of, hey, it's there, but it's not taking you over. So I think that's a really nice feature and functionality of the whiskey, right? I think so many times we don't think of whiskey like cars, right? You have your baseline whiskeys, and then you have, your Camrys, right? Hey, it's going to run, it's going to solid. I'm going to pick it up every day. And then you have, your whiskeys with a little bit of frill. Maybe you got leather seats, or maybe you got Apple CarPlay. And then you kind of level it up, past that one more time, right? And you get no frills type of whiskey. This is about the luxury of it. This is a luxurious sip from front to back. And at 7 years old, it doesn't leave a lot to be desired. I think sometimes 7-year-old whiskey, especially in the craft blend, non-producing distiller space, that's the hard part. Can people muster up, how many times have they been jaded by that? I don't think anyone would be jaded by this release whatsoever. And it's $134, but I think this is where being on my side and experiencing that, I feel like it's a fair price. I feel like it falls right in line with other NPDs for that. And so, I applaud you not being too high or, trying to crash the market right too low because, you're kind of putting out, bourbon at an approachable price. Now, the crazy thing is the 10-year-old is only 184. So like there's not a big gap between like going to a really big, bold bourbon, which a lot of these 10-year-old bourbons, like an Old Fitzgerald, are carrying a closer price tag to that $150, $160 now. So you're kind of right in line with the 10-year-old bourbon craze. Do people ever kind of push you on like being an NPD and pricing when they talk to you?
A little bit. A lot of it goes into, the 3-tier system. So it's not just us that's making the money. Everyone from the store has to make it to the distributor. So, our margin is from that 130 is, far less than that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is like, a store's going to get their 40% and the distributor's going to get their 40%. So it's like an 80% markup by the time like it's left your all's hands.
Right.
And I think, a lot of times people think, oh, well, that is what it is. That opens up a whole other can of worms. Should we review or revisit the 3-tier system? That's a whole nother topic for another time. Those were prohibition things to put in place for a lot of reasons. Well, there's multi-billion-dollar businesses built off the 3-tier system. So, can't upset the apple cart too much when it comes to that. So for you, right? So Doc Holliday is not the only thing you touch, right? You touch Wyatt Earp as well. So what brought you all into the American single malt craze? Because, it is an nth of the barrels sold, right? Or bottles sold, however you look at it, however you do your all's math. Why American single malt for you all?
We're just huge whiskey fans. We got a few samples, tried it, absolutely loved it, and brought in 100 barrels.
Yeah, there you go. And they're really different flavor profiles from where out. Did you get all new charred American oak barrels, or did you get some used charred?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's all new char.
Got it. And what are you all doing with that? Are you all blending that? Are you releasing those as single barrels as well?
Yeah, we're doing all single barrel for the Wyatt Earp for the cask strength, and then the small batch we're doing 7 barrel small batches, and then we just got in a 13-year, so we'll be doing a Wyatt Earp 13-year hazmat by the end of the year. Wow!
So you're going to push that out of over 140 proof American single malt.
So it's not going to be a American single malt; it's American malt.
American malt. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So that thing's going to have some punch to it.
Yeah, the highest proof we found was 166 proof.
Whew, boy,
yep.
That kind of hurts my soul a little bit. I don't know if I could drink that.
Yeah, we sold one as a single barrel whenever I was in Chicago last week, and I think the guy was about to pass out.
Yeah, I mean, good for you all, but I mean, like that's one of those things that I don't know. I understand the craze around it. I get it. I'm in the bourbon, nerd circle too. But I can't do high proof all day, every day. Do you all, how do you all approach that? Right. With, the bourbon enthusiast is one market, and then you have your everyday bourbon consumer. Like, how do you all kind of follow or toe that line with being a higher end product, but being able to be approachable to all people?
It's tough to say on, being approached to all people. I don't think we're, necessarily trying to push for that. I think we definitely have a kind of a specific market that we aim for.
And there's nothing wrong with having a specific market. If you're targeting the high end, or I guess the better way to say it would be the ultra premium space, right? Like that's how I think it's classified from your all's kind of price point, 75 and higher. Then you are looking for a consumer that probably knows what they like or wants a certain type of whiskey a certain way.
Right.
And so that's very interesting to think through. And one of the things I think that's really unique about you all, right? So you have your I know we talked to staying on Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. You all produce a lot of wild glassware. Just talk to me a little bit about that. What's it like to go through that procurement and the wild things that you all bottle in? Because those things have to be a little bit of a nightmare for any type of production perspective.
Yeah, some of the projects we work on, it'll take, a year, like our Macallan bottles that are in Baccarat.
Yeah.
That was over a 2-year process on creating from the armor to the shield to the Baccarat glass itself, to where, ton of different working elements to that, to where we're working from 6 different countries and bringing it all together.
Whew. So do you blend across portfolio, not just bourbon and American whiskey, but Scotch, Japanese, so on and so forth?
Yeah. Yeah. We have over 100 barrels of Japanese single malt in our distillery that's aged in Ivy Mountain bourbon barrels, and then tons of Scotch. We've released 30, 31, 32, and 33-year Macallan, and then just released a 32-year Altmore and Strathmill Scotch single malt.
Okay. So you're playing with the big boys. Like, you all have procured some really nice barrels. And would you liken yourself, I guess, to like a Scotch Malt Whiskey Society or any of those traditional houses, signatory in Scotland? Is that kind of what you all are doing here in the American whiskey scene?
Slightly. It's definitely something that Alex, our owner, and myself have looked into, and kind of followed a little bit, kind of seen what they've done well and what they haven't done well, and kind of worked off of it.
Yeah. So what do you think the next step is for World Whiskey Society? Like, what does continued success look like for you all over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think the biggest thing in the next 3 years is to push out our single barrel program. We started what's called the Barrel a la carte program. And so my trip in Chicago last week, that's what we were kind of unveiling, going to a bunch of different accounts, stores, showing them the a la carte system and have them pick barrels. And so, if we could, push those out the next 3 years, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And to finish off the night, because I enjoy Japanese whiskey like the best American bourbon drinkers that there are. I do have the Japanese Single Malt Mezzanara oak finish, and I feel like, since you talked about a light whiskey that you all did with maybe a richer, deeper, complexity, might as well pour a little bit of the Japanese Single Malt Mezzanara cask. So for this one, for you, like, what's it like playing with a very distinct style of whiskey? I know people think Japanese and Scotch are so similar. They are, but the Japanese attention to detail is wild, right? So you're getting a liquid that is beyond, like, just, I don't know. I think a lot of them are perfection. I think they've really done a really good job. What's it like to be able to play around with really, really, really clean distillate? Because it is clean, even though a lot of it is pot stilled.
Yeah, as soon as we got the new make, I was there for it. So we got to try that, and off the bat, it was like bananas. I mean, it was just, bananas and cream. So off the bat, you could tell it was a good white dog. And once we put it in bourbon barrels, it's really changed. We've had it in there for close to 3 years now, and definitely getting better.
Yeah, and this single malt is a little bit earthy. I don't know if it's got any parts per million in it. I don't know if it's peated or not, but it does have a little bit of that earthy note to it, where I could see if it's peated. Is it peated?
It's not. It's in 10-year Ivy Mountain barrels. Those are our Georgia Doc Holliday 10-year barrels. Those spent 2 years in Texas. So kind of has that, deeper oak going for it. It's
definitely got salinity, right? Like, that you don't really get a lot from bourbon, right? I feel like, bourbon is, traditional certain notes, right? And then you said that banana note, right? And then I started to get that. The brain's very suggestive, right, of all of that. And so this is a really, it's a really nice whiskey. It's a barbecue whiskey to me, right? This is something you want with barbecue. And I don't really traditionally think that with Japanese, because it does have that salinity. It does have that oak. It does have that by the sea characteristic, where it's got some of that I'm not calling it Band-Aid, but it's got that earthy undertone to it, which is really nice. That char is definitely there. It's definitely, you all have done a really nice job with this. Big fan of Japanese whiskey. So to finish off the night. So what's your favorite project you've worked on for World Whiskey Society?
Probably our 12-year sherry finish. It was our 12-year Heaven Hill barrels. So I'm a big Heaven Hill guy, especially their finish. You don't see too much of it outside of like Parker's.
Yeah.
And so, it was fantastic. It was really good stuff.
Yeah.
We had an Armagnac finish also, but I think the sherry was definitely my favorite.
It sounds good. It sounds like I need to continue to explore the cask collection that you all have available. Those are slick looking bottles.
Thank you.
And that's, I think, branding's everything. When you're going to put out something, unique and different, you might as well go for the home run. Like make it look cool. Why gargoyles?
Just something cool. Definitely want to keep with the goth, the gothic kind of look. So it was what we went with.
I mean, hey, you're a man of simplicity, and I'm here for it. Because if it just works. All right, done. We'll keep it moving. So, for people to find out more about World Whiskey Society, how would someone go and get connected and get engaged with you all so they know what's coming up or what will drop on the website?
Yeah, our biggest thing is social media, our Instagram. We post every day on there and post all of our releases. And so anytime we have a website release, we'll post it on there beforehand.
Yeah. And do you all drop something pretty regularly? Is it on a monthly basis, or is it, just kind of hodgepodge and make sure you're signed up, or do you all have a newsletter that people can get that, would alert them to what's happening?
Yeah, we do have a newsletter to where if you join on our website, you'll be brought into all of that.
There you go. So you can't miss the opportunities, because it sounds like there's a lot of cool, fun projects on the way. And you all have a lot of barrels at your fingertips to be able to do some pretty cool stuff. So one last question. If you were on a desert island and you had to take one of the World Whiskey Society bottles with you, what would you take and how long would that bottle last?
Probably bring the Doc Holliday 11-year. Even though it's an island, it's going to be hot. Got to bring something delicious. So
there you go.
Bring the 11-year.
Would it last more than a week?
Yeah, I'd make it last 3 months.
All right. Well, it's a slow burn across that. So you're taking a whole barrel with you is what you just told me.
I would have to.
There's no way one bottle of whiskey is going to last you 3 months across a desert island, because you would find a way to chill it out just enough to make the proof point right. Well, man, it's been great connecting with you. Thanks for sharing samples of whiskey with us. We are always greatly appreciated. I always make sure that we highlight your all's PR team. So Colangelo and Partners are great, and we really appreciate their partnership to reach out to make this happen. They are the unsung heroes of the industry to make sure connections happen so that we can get your all's world out. Or get your all's word out there so people can enjoy, the whiskey and try something different. So Chris, really appreciate your time this Monday evening, and hope you have a great week. And everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Cheers.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Jake.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed, because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.